later on and making sure that
Perfect. We will have the recording started now. So without further ado, good day, colleagues, friends, and everyone joining in on the webinar. I'm your host, Anthea van der Wegen. I'm sure by now you can all hear me clearly. I hope that you will enjoy the conversation with us on innovative solutions for the world's pressing sustainability challenges. A special welcome to our panelists, Kwena Mabotia and Akash Singh. I want to welcome Professor George de Foulis, the project manager of Project ARC, and Professor Brenda Scholtz, the acting director of Schools of Computing Sciences, Maths, Physics and Stats here at Nelson Mandela University. Professor Scholtz is also our university's representative for Project ARC. Professor George will first share a few words with us about the project. Over to you, Prof.
Okay, hello everyone. It is a very interesting time for our project. The reason is that we just found out that we may have some additional funds that we can claim by the end of the month, and we can extend our activity. So I just wanted to announce this live because our colleagues from South Africa will receive a very interesting email in the following hours or maybe tomorrow. Hopefully we will extend our already successful activities further. And it is very interesting to see how the British Council, who's given us immense support for this kind of event, is putting even more calls in out, which we will be investigating. So this is a very interesting time. Climate change has been really at the core of our focus for some time now. I come from a background of computer science and digital technologies, and this project was about how to use digital technologies and, if you like, IT to make sure that we reverse climate change and we hopefully will get a positive impact with young generations. So one of the important things that we need to consider with Project ARC, which is a project involving 13 different countries, is the concept of sustainability. And sustainability is very, very important, especially when it comes to young generations, because years ago, a few decades ago, our parents did not consider sustainability because they thought that we would have endless materials, endless resources. We can do whatever we like without having an impact. But today we see the impact. And when it comes to continents like Africa, this is very important for certain, especially for Western European countries, to understand that there is a huge proportion of the population, and the majority population cannot take things for granted. We cannot take things for granted, such as the availability of water, the availability of clean water. We cannot take for granted the oxygen, the volume of forests. And of course, we cannot take for granted these days even the availability of technology, because energy consumption, the affordability of technology will become an issue. You've seen the world phenomenon that affects a lot Europe around us. I mean, prices of fuel is going up, and subsequently that means the availability of products. So it's very interesting to see how even the developed world is now facing the same problems. This is the time for people to talk on climate change, because the countries that have been affected by scarcity of resources can go back to the developed world now and say, do you see now how I felt for all these years? So sustainability is at the core of research now. It's at the core of our teaching. So I'm really looking forward about the next the talk, which unfortunately I will just see from the recording, and see how, from your perspectives, the experts in the panel will educate us. I urge all the partners who are joining this webinar to demonstrate this webinar through our YouTube channel. We will make sure that we will have it available within 2 or 3 days from Anthea's email and Brenda's email. And hopefully the students, because it's very important, not only the adults, but the students, to understand how sustainability has to be one of their key priorities in life from now on. So panelists, thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate your involvement, and we will value your comments and your advice and your wise words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Go well. We'll keep you posted. Bye for now. Then briefly, Professor Brenda will now give us insights into how our university was selected as one of only 13 universities on this global project. Over to you, Professor Brenda.
Thanks, Anthea. Was that a hint to be brief? I will be very brief. As Anthea said, I was involved with the call for this project, and we're thankful to Prof. Dafoulis for considering us. We are one of 14 universities from all around the world, with some countries that we don't even know exist. It's been a very interesting project, and it falls part of the COP28, which is happening in a few weeks in Glasgow. And yes, as Anthea said, we were selected through a very rigorous process, and we are pleased to be part of this project. I think there was over 480 proposals submitted to the British Council, and as I said, only 14 were selected, and our one is a multi-university project. Thanks, and I think Prof. Dafoulis gave a very good overview. And I just wanted to also mention, I see Ariadne Tsiakara is here. She's the project R coordinator from Middlesex University. I don't think Prof. Dafoulis mentioned it, but he is from Middlesex University in London, and they are the main university driving this project. Thank you. Over to the panelists.
Yes, can you quickly say what the ARC stands for?
Oh, good question. You told them, Anthea.
I think it is assuming accountability for climate change. Yeah. If anyone wonders what the ARC is about, it's assuming accountability for climate, or responsibility rather, for climate change.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prof, for that introduction. Just a few logistics. Please note that the structure of our webinar involves 4 overall questions to our panelists, who will each have the opportunity to share their thoughts based on their prescribed perspectives. If you have any questions that you would like the panelists to answer, please post these in the chat feature. Then at the end of the discussion, we will open the floor and try to get to as many of those. Remember, if you want a specific panelist to respond, then use the @ sign followed by either Kwena or Akash, their names, and then list your question. Otherwise, you can say or put up your hand, use the reactions, and we can unmute you and you can just go for it and talk over your question. Then it is a great privilege for me to first introduce Kwena to the audience today. She is the Global Director for Purpose and Sustainability Marketing at SAP. She joined SAP in 2014 and has over 12 years overall industry experience. Kwena establishes high-impact engagements with purpose-driven customers and partners, providing thought leadership, collaboration, and conversations on the challenges and opportunities to create a positive economic and environmental and social impact. She is considered amongst the top 1% of Africa's youth leaders, having been selected as a Mandela Washington Fellow, the flagship program for President Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative. She's also an Africa Compt Fellow, a German, I hope I said that right, a German-led program to develop future leaders of Africa. Kwena speaks on international platforms and is the thought leader on the topic of empowering youth, women, and girls. She is passionate about empowering Africa's youth and women through skills development, as well as innovation and technology as the key drivers in unlocking economic growth on the African continent. Kwena, welcome. We look forward to continue your conversation from the perspective of innovative entrepreneurship in our context. Again, it's a pleasure for me to welcome Akash today. He is an alumni of our department, the Computing Sciences Department, where he completed his PhD studies. Akash is the enterprise architecture lead for strategy and consulting at Accenture Africa, and he has over a decade of international consulting experience in both public and private sector. He also worked across numerous industries. Akash actively contributes to shaping the global IT world through his value-driven engagement engagements with his clients. Having worked with Fortune 500 companies, Akash thrives in working to demystify complex landscapes with novel and innovative solutions. His key ambition lies in pushing the boundaries of digital innovation and technology strategies across Africa. Welcome, Akash, and we hope to learn more about the Green Cloud Computing perspective from you today.
Thank you, Anthea, and thank you to the department.
Perfect. So, everyone, to start our conversation, I will refer to the mission statement of the 17 Global Sustainability Goals as follows. It says, or it reads as follows: a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all by 2030. To our panelists, the first Sustainability Development Goal, in short SDG, is no poverty. And SDG 6 is quality education. How does your company or your organization address these SDGs specifically for South Africa? And in particular, you can highlight how this is addressed through any career development projects that are aimed at students and graduates. I think we have a nice full house of students here today. Kwena, can you respond? And then over to you, Akash. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthea. And yeah, it's so great to be here on this platform talking about this topic that I'm particularly passionate about. I think you might be able to see that I'm wearing the SDG badge on my shoulder. And yeah, this is something that drives me and, gets me out of bed every morning. So I thought, Anthea, just to jump into this topic, just to provide a bit of context, right? I think, the profs did some scene setting up front, but I just wanted to highlight, the goals and the achievement of the goals by 2030. I think that's a very long time. I read a report recently that highlighted that in order to achieve...
Sorry, Kwena, sorry, excuse me, Kwena, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I think you are breaking up. It might just be me.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine now. Yes.
Okay. So, sorry, I was just making the point, Anthea, that, to achieve the goals, right? We've set the target of 2030, which is not very far away. And, I was reading a report recently that highlighted that in order to achieve the target set up in the SDGs, we actually need 30 years to get there, right? So in order for us to actually get to that point, a lot of change needs to happen. We need to accelerate this change, and everyone has to come to the party. So it's great to see initiatives like Project ARC happening for us to get to this sustainable world. And this will require for us to have an innovative approach to the challenges and to really think differently about how we approach these things, right? So just contextually as well, from a business perspective, companies are actually under a lot of pressure right now to become more purpose-driven and sustainable in how they innovate and operate. There's pressure coming from governments from a regulation perspective, but also, customers of these companies are no longer willing to support where companies are not showing that they can operate sustainably. And then, so from all these angles, right, companies are expected to play a leading role in addressing the SDGs. It's not enough anymore to just focus on profit. You need to think about this beyond your activities, beyond just profit, but focus as well on the impact of society and the environment. So just from us at SAP, for example, we take this very seriously. And in fact, we're seeing purpose and sustainability as being core to our innovation strategy. And it's at the very core of everything that we do with regards to our products that we're developing, the partnerships that we have, the programs that we're running, and our people to contribute towards building a better world. So, Anthea, can I assume that everyone is familiar with SAP in the call? Because, typically...
I think most of us are, and I think we have some of our students here that uses your SIFA software as well.
Okay. So I don't need to highlight that SAP is not the South African police, but it's one of the largest software companies in the world, right? And for us, our vision at SAP is to help the world run better and improve people's lives. And we imagine and innovate towards a future that looks greener, cleaner, and more equal than the world we live in today. And we're really angling towards zero emissions, zero waste, and zero inequality. And we're calling this Aspiration Chasing Zero. And we work across our network of our entire global ecosystem basically to drive this and to scale the SDGs. So you highlighted in particular, Anthea, if we look at the first SDG, no poverty, and the sixth one, quality education. And for me, I see these goals as being very closely interlinked because, for example, one of the leading drivers of poverty is unemployment, which is often linked to not having relevant skills to get the jobs or to start a business. And looking at, our aspiration of zero inequality that I just mentioned, we really want to build a society where no one is left behind and where everyone is equipped with the relevant skills needed to be able to thrive, right? And at SAP in particular, we have a focus on young people because they represent the future leaders and the future workforce. And we know that, in South Africa, for example, 60% of the population is under 25. So the young people are the greatest asset. They are the future leaders, they are the future workers, and they are the future society that will enjoy the world that we're building. So we know that they do face several challenges like high levels of unemployment. And one of the reasons for that is because of the lack of skills. So also because we live in this digital world, of course, we are working towards creating opportunities to create digital inclusion and to secure the futures of young people. So we're committed to this. And I'd like to share maybe two examples. I guess some of the people in the audience are already aware. But the first example is, for example, the University Alliances program, of which we are working with educational institutions all around the world to teach SAP technologies. And that helps us to bridge the gap. Right. And specifically in Africa, as you mentioned, the CIFA program that we are so proud to partner with NMU on, right, to be able to secure the future workforce. And then something that could be of particular interest from a career projection and progress for the students, for example, is our SAP Young Professionals program, which we are using to address digital inclusion and youth unemployment, because we know so many of our youth graduate and then they struggle to secure a job once they've graduated, right? Which is such a pity because of the investment that's taken to get, that academic grounding. So the SAP Young Professionals program is our skills development initiative. It's our job creation initiative, and we're using that to provide free SAP certification as an associate consultant to unemployed graduates. And then we follow that up with a guaranteed internship opportunity within our SAP ecosystem. So that's with an SAP customer or an SAP partner, for example. And many of those internship opportunities then translate actually into real jobs at the end of the day. So really equipping graduates with a globally recognized certification that they can take and find opportunities within the SAP ecosystem. So I would encourage, all the students listening to look into the SAP Young Professionals program. We have cohorts that come every half year almost. And this program is very, very active in South Africa as well. So, for all the CIFA students, really look into that to see how you can then take up that opportunity once you graduate to get that certification as an associate consultant and then to get a internship at the end of the day. So this is some of how we are addressing, that challenge of, poverty as well as, quality education.
Thank you for your response, Gwen. I think some of our colleagues in the chat has even highlighted the benefits and bursaries that SAP through CIFA has benefited our students there. So thanks so much. Akash, I invite you to respond to that first statement on no poverty and quality education from your point of view and your company's perspective as well. Over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Anthea, and thanks, Kwena, for that great perspective. I also would like to, in true consulting style, I also have a deck that I want to share with some notes. Let me just bring it up quickly. Great. Do this. Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Akash Singh, and as Anthea introduced me, I was part of the computing sciences department once upon a time. It was a very amazing journey, and it was great to be educated by the great set of academics that you have over there. I represent my journey, and I see one of my previous colleagues, Devet, has also joined the call. It's good that Devet is here. Hi, Devet. If you think about anything technology related, we are there. We do it. There was a statistic at some point in time that 97% of every email that floats around the world has touched an Accenture implementation. We have a workforce of over 500,000 people globally, and we do everything from technology strategy right down to technology operations, which would be basically your call centers, your SAP support, all those good things in life. Just to give you a quick overview of how we as a company view sustainability, it really starts from our very top, our global CEO, Julie Sweet. And Julie's view on this is, as we engage with our customers, similarly to what Kwena said, there is a very pressing view that we need to change the economy of the world. And this economy really needs to change with a new perspective of a sustainable economy, a greener economy, and one that's really empowered with the consciousness of growing the benefit of all and not just for corporate benefits. If I take you through quickly how we describe sustainability in our organization and what are those three key areas that we tend to target on, we look at technology and sustainably, firstly, in terms of reducing the negative impact from a technology footprint, that's in terms of carbon emissions, that's in terms of tin and and ensuring that we bring in the right amount of traceability in the environment. The next thing we take a look at is how do we then remedy this with the right level of digital technologies, novel innovations in the landscape, whereby we not just have the standard technology use cases, we actually build in a component of sustainability into this. And lastly, we also realize that we're not a think tank of one, and we really need to do this by engaging with the right partner ecosystem. And if I just go through this quickly, if you can see, we partner with all of the big industries or big companies in the industry to really deliver that sustainability to our customers out there. But what do? We realize that if we take a look at something like poverty, something like education, it really is at the top of the agenda in most organizations' sustainability agenda. But there are really different aspects to it. There are different perspectives to it. And we come in and then we evaluate based on 6 key things. And then we work with 6 different levels within the organization, all from the C-suite, to say, how do we take a look at this and bring sustainability and make it seem not so complex as it is, and demystify it so that we can really deliver some innovative solutions. When we bring it closer to home, we see that we have a responsibility as a company to really work with our clients, to partner with them and our partner ecosystem so that we can actually deliver a direct input to the citizens of this country as well. A nice example of where we've done that recently is that we were awarded some funding from our global headquarters, and we channeled that through to government in terms of enabling and delivering a vaccine solution to the rest of the country. So for us, it is imperative for Accenture that we are part of the sustainability agenda. It's imperative for us that we work with our clients to deliver that and to continuously deliver to our communities so that we bring about the right level of value. In terms of our people and our investment in future people, future technologists, future strategists, future sustainability, future ecologists, on average at the graduate level, we receive about 6,000 to 10,000 applications a year, sometimes more. While we only take a percentage of that, we really look for those people who not only have a passion for technology, but a passion for those who can make a difference. Just to give you an example, in our strategy and consulting capability this year, we have a total of 2,500 applicants. And the return number on that at the end of the day is we'll probably only acquire 8 to 10 of those. So we really have a lot of people trying to get in. We really invest in our graduates. We really place them into different sectors, different industries, different organizations so that they can see what it's like to make a first-hand impact into the organization. So we are really committed to growing the country and the finest talent. And we're also really committed from a diversity agenda to ensuring that we have the right balance in our organization. When we take a look at how we deal with poverty, this is not something that we only started looking at today. We've been doing this for a while, and we've been making a great impact with most of the sustainability organizations in the world. If you take a look at Bill and Melinda Gates, we also have a partnership with them, and we also work directly with them on some initiatives in South Africa. So over a span of 97 countries, we've executed over 1,900 projects, and we've had great impacts, and we've actually improved the lives of what we do. And as you can see, the sustainability goals are really key to the development program, the development partnership, not only here in Africa, but globally. And we really try and partner with those who can actively contribute and who are also passionate about making that difference. Just in terms of South Africa, yes, some of the companies that we've partnered with in order to relook at how do we deliver sustainability, how do we help eradicate things like poverty, how do we engineer new things such as a green gas delivery model? How do we look at things like moving to a more sustainable solution instead of petroleum, which really impacts our environment? How do we educate the youth about that? And more importantly, when we bring youth into the organization, we not only try and test for their passion for technology, to have a sustainable economy around that. How do we create a green technological environment as well? But we also understand that getting things, especially like education and poverty, right in South Africa is not something that we can do overnight. And we have a lot of lessons learned. We have a lot of principles around this. And I just put a few down on this page so that you can have a look at it. And it really starts off with, as I've been hammering on, building those right relationships, the trusted relationships, so that we can actually move the needle on these topics, right? Understanding how we can work with NGOs, with local government and the international organizations, so that we can understand where we can make an impact, we can capitalize on the market where necessary, and also monitor the right incomes so that we can not only support government, but we can be a part of it from the private sector, making a difference as well too. So Anthea, that's just our perspective on how we contribute to that topic.
Thanks so much, Akash, for even sharing those visual illustrations. I'm sure the audience had fun sourcing through that. So I think with regards to how you and Kwena has elaborated on what your organizations are doing in terms of no poverty and quality education, has this, or how has it changed from pre-COVID to post-COVID? I know you mentioned, Akash, that you worked on some vaccination initiatives. Kwena, I think you can go first, keeping in mind your perspective of the innovative entrepreneurship. Over to you.
Yeah, so I think, pre-COVID, post-COVID, these are very two different worlds. And, this has obviously led to quite a bit of disruption in the market where, for example, we've all had to stay home and bring initiatives into a virtual environment. So I think that what we've had to do is to relook at the programs that we're running and to think about how we can continue those programs and to scale them with the power of technology and being in the virtual space. So I guess the first point, with the programs that we run within the digital inclusion, developing the future workforce space, we've had to bring all of these initiatives into the virtual environment. So, for example, for the University Alliances program, we have now given free access to our member universities as well as their students to the SAP Learning Hub, which is SAP's online learning platform offering various SAP courses as well as the chance to certify. So students from member universities can have free access to 18 learning journeys where they can have access to SAP solutions in various technical and functional capacities and get prepared for an SAP certification. And the certification is also all at a reduced cost for the student. Another avenue from the skills and inclusion perspective is around our Open SAP MOOC, which is our massive open online courses platform, where you can find various learning paths on different topics from sustainability to development to design thinking and various hard and soft skills. And this is open to everybody, so you don't necessarily need to be a member of the University Alliances program to participate here. But also, as long as you have a valid email, you can have access to all of those resources. So by creating these virtual platforms, we're also finding that we're able to scale the impact and reach a broader audience with the resources that are there and available, for SAP. And then just looking from the lens of innovation and the entrepreneurial perspective, I did talk earlier around, the SDGs and how companies are now becoming more purpose-driven. And Akash also gave us kind of that framework of how Accenture is viewing this problem. But the thing is, not everyone wants to be employed. Some people actually want to start their own businesses. And, I just read a report that 55% of Gen Z, which I believe many of the audience are here, would like to start their own businesses. And in order to solve some of the pressing challenges, whether it be education, etc., or the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to look at how startups and entrepreneurs can play a key role. And I believe that, this is the group that's also key and critical to driving innovation because they have the first-hand experiences in terms of what's happening within the communities. And then we also know that technology can be used as an enabler to drive and scale some of these solutions. So I think I would encourage, young people to think about social entrepreneurship and how that can be an opportunity of area to drive innovation. And, just a little bit on what is a social enterprise, for example. This is a for-profit business that is aiming to achieve a social and or environmental goal whilst generating income from trading. So there are so many opportunities here for young people to play a role. And not only do social enterprises create social good, but they also create opportunities for economic prosperity, right? So we know that this is a sector that's growing very quickly. In the US alone, 25% of the money invested 2 years ago was towards purpose-driven and purpose-led organizations. And also corporates are also looking to partner with social enterprises as part of their own journeys. So there's such a multifaceted opportunity here to drive impact. So, I mean, that's kind of the innovation piece, how technology and innovation can be used to tackle some of the challenges. And if we bring it back to kind of COVID-19, there have been some really great opportunities, but also some challenges that startups have faced that have been aggravated by COVID-19, like a lack of skills or access to customers. In terms of the challenges, one of the areas that we've identified, for example, at SAP, is the lack of skills, for example, that social enterprises are experiencing as a result of COVID-19. So, there are a number of initiatives that we've looked at there where, for example, globally, SAP has made a commitment that by 2025, 5% of our own social procurement spend will be targeted towards social enterprises. Now, if you think of the scale of that, SAP, a global company with almost, thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of employees across the world. We're looking at our entire end-to-end spend and saying we would like to pledge that 5% of that is supporting social enterprises, particularly that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, in Africa, we are completely committed towards driving this goal. We are also looking at how to incorporate social enterprises into our SAP Ariba network. So SAP Ariba network is a buyers and sellers network connecting vendors and suppliers of services. And we are providing free access for social enterprises to register to become vendors as part of this overall Ariba network. So that's ongoing. And also then lastly, with the impact of COVID-19, many businesses have suffered. And so one of the ways in which we are supporting these businesses as well is through SAP's pro bono volunteering program that is providing mentorship and expertise of our SAP employees' talent to help these businesses to pivot how they operate, especially as a result of the impact of the pandemic. And for example, right now I'm working with a social enterprise that is turning organic waste into compost and therefore, creating jobs, but also looking at, the climate action piece in terms of circular economy. So that's just a number of examples how, just from an innovation perspective, what's been happening. I think there's so many great cases of social enterprises that are addressing particular challenges related to COVID-19. And I can share a few more examples of that. For example, the one company that's inspiring me right now is within the healthcare space, where they are providing at-home hospital care for patients. And what they're doing is using technology and an application to connect patients that would have otherwise been in a hospital to healthcare professionals at home. And also thereby, we saw in COVID, addressing the challenge around, limited hospital beds during the pandemic. So that's just an example of one that's inspiring me. But from an SAP perspective, we think there's a role to play as a corporate in terms of supporting these social enterprises, particularly within the lens of COVID, so that we can really drive this innovation with purpose and, support this innovation that is addressing social challenges in the country.
Thank you, Kwena. I'm happy to see that the chat feature and the chat is alive and happening. Please hold on to your questions. We have 10 more minutes to finish up all the discussions with the panelists, and then we'll open the floor to everyone to engage with our panelists. Akash, with regards to the post and pre-COVID, no poverty, no education, from your perspective of green cloud computing, how would you expand on this? Over to you.
Yeah, it's very interesting, this question. And even if we just park green cloud for a moment, I think, when COVID came in, it really created a bit of a scurry. And from our side, there was always topics of discussions in whatever scale organization of how do we develop the right digital strategy? How do we understand what our agenda is? And how do we slowly mature the right capabilities in our organization so that we can unlock new value, that profitability becomes meaning? And here comes this disruptor. It wasn't a technological disruptor. It was really something that we couldn't see coming, and it was called COVID. And what that actually did was it pushed the wave of innovation and digital so far forward that it actually accelerated how we look at everything digital and technological within an environment, right? The sad thing is that those that didn't have access to the right level of fund couldn't adapt, and they suffered economically as a consequence. But what we did find is there were really three key questions that our customers were asking us and that we were thinking about as an innovation organization, which is, how do we help our customers respond to this? How do we help our citizens respond to this so that we can really protect the workforce? We can really protect that vehicle of enablement that we created from a skills perspective, from a nurturing perspective. How do we reset our thinking? Because clearly, one, we can't have this happen again. And two, we can't also let this impact influence our bottom line at the end of the day. And based on that, how do we take something like this and review and renew our processes, our organizational structures, how we work, most importantly, how we lead in these times, and how we continue to grow our people and make them feel meaningful, even though they're a bit disconnected from a physical environment in which they felt that they could always contribute. So that was a big thing. Now, when we take something like cloud and we add it into the mix, South Africa is still getting there, but globally there's so many organizations, small and big, that are pivoting towards the cloud that the amount of infrastructure is just ramping, which also means the way in which carbon emissions are dealt with was scaling at a certain pace. But what we've seen is, from a green cloud perspective, I know Kwena touched on the circular economy, but we also have a term called the circular cloud strategy, which is how do we partner with the right hyperscalers? How do we partner with the right vendors? So it's almost like energy distribution. So that waste is not just destroyed, it's really utilized in a more appropriate manner. So when we look at the total cost of ownership around cloud, when we look at appropriate scaling in the cloud environment, it's really done to the benefit of the environment and not just to the benefit of the organization. So that was one of the key factors that we brought in, especially when it comes to looking at renewal. How do we renew our processes so that we can really scale with this ability to create an agile environment, an elastic environment? We hear about these terms, people have dreamt about it, but COVID really put that wedge in the door to say, now we have to start doing it. And customers who still felt that they can, put coal at the back of their legacy Dell servers and expected everything to run as normal, were left behind. And their lights weren't put on. It's almost as if it was raining on their coal. So COVID-19 really disrupted how we treat these types of things. But it's also made it really exciting. Like if we take a look at how we deal with our graduates, if we take a look at how recruitments for those purposes, we're really infusing more ways of digital. And in those areas where we have disrupted connectivity, how do we partner with the Vodacoms, the MTNs, to really scale fiber out, to scale 5G out, so that we're actually helping improving the overall bandwidth in the country for people to have access to technology, to learning, to education. Thanks, Anthea.
Is Anthea here or has she disappeared?
I think she's frozen.
Pretty frozen.
Oh dear. Okay, well, I'm going to have you address this question from one of the audience. I think we can do that in the interim while we're waiting for Anthea to try and get back in. Who would like to go first, Kwena or Akash? So we have a question here from Rachitswa. Have you addressed this question yet about, he mentions the innovation point of view, companies are finding it difficult to continue with these innovations due to people being stuck in their old ways. I'm sure you're all used to clients who get stuck in their old ways. So he mentions examples here about companies looking at eSIM to improve environment sustainability, but consumers still want to stick to physical SIM cards. Now they're forced to create ecoSIM or environment-friendly SIM cards by reducing plastic. So yes, and then he also mentions obviously people from poor backgrounds and their challenges with online tools. So I think it's a very good question. And I know some of this was covered in your previous points, but if there's anything you want to add, possibly you can do that. Who would like to go first?
Yeah, maybe I'll give it a stab. Just
okay.
Touching on the perspective of, the resistance towards innovation. And I think, Akash, you touched on it, right? That, COVID-19 really kind of created this burning platform for innovation to happen because, those organizations that were not able to change course and, be agile to deal with, the impact of a pandemic, whether it be relooking at their business model, relooking at their value proposition, relooking at their operations and how they deliver value. Those companies have failed and are not able to exist. So it's kind of like, innovation then becomes the lifeblood of the organization. You need innovation to be able to thrive. And I think that, events such as COVID-19 are highlighting that. And we're seeing more and more C-level executives asking themselves the important questions around how do I remain relevant? How do I continue to innovate? And I think that as well, organizationally, it's the role of leadership to kind of drive that into the organization. And so what we're seeing is that, the leaders are taking on that perspective and thinking about ways to drive that within the organizational culture, which is obviously not always easy. Around the concept of the consumers being difficult to kind of change, my perspective is that, that is shifting. I think that consumers are becoming more and more responsible in terms of, supporting the organizations that are responsible and are coming up with the solutions that are sustainable. I think we're also seeing a change in the demographic of the consumers, right? So we're seeing a lot more Gen Z, young people who really care about sustainability. And so for me, I think actually there is a shift in that consumer space for businesses to actually become more sustainable and to deliver and land products that can demonstrate, things like looking at, circular economy and the impact to the environment. So maybe, yeah, I'll just touch on those 2 points for that question.
Thanks so much, Gwenna. I think awareness is always a big issue. Thanks so much. Let's hear what Akash has to say, and then we will address this question. Thanks, Akash. Over to you.
Thank you, Brenda. Change is always a trend. And when it enters the hype cycle, then we know it's going to make an impact. And I want to use a very simple answer, and I think, or a situation, I think it'll address the eSIM one and the question just above it on how our students can better understand sustainability. Checkers 60/60 as a platform for delivery. So not a solution, as a platform for delivery, and as a digital platform for enabling those key concepts within the environment. So when we take a look at something like that aimed at a specific market, at a specific segment within the market, it gains really vast amounts of customer share very quickly. So it gains that ground, and then it starts being utilized by all. But then when we take a look at something like Checkers, and it looks at that platform and it says, how do we then scale this to our ShopRite customers? How do we make it more accessible? And to Kwena's point, we can't do that without the help of Gen Z, because they're the ones that are really pushing change as a trend, right? So when we take that same platform, we scale it into other customer segments, then we see the type of change coming in. Even something as simple as the Checkers 60/60 bag being completely recyclable. So we're not looking at the standard plastic bag. We're not looking at that bag that we pay 5 or 10 Rand for in Woolies. You're getting a free bag that is completely recyclable. And that just adds to the entire sustainability ecosystem. Now, how do we move that to a greater market position for something like ShopRite? And those kinds of things only happen when you get the right market share and you change the thinking. But unless Gen Z helps with those transitions, you're going to be stuck with that same question, because inherently humans as creatures, we resist change. We're not that open. And in Africa, it's an engineering mindset as well. As if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Let it still play. But really, as people come up with these new inventions, they're excited about it, and they show, I'm not going to say the older folk, but a different age category of how it can work, how it makes their lives easier. Then we start seeing a better proliferation within the market of these new technology solutions and a greater adoption, actually. Thank you. Thanks, Brenda.
Thanks so much, Akash. I agree 100%. I think change is always resisted. That's human nature. But I think information, and not false information, obviously information sharing creates knowledge, which creates awareness. So that is a huge step in the right direction. The only real big challenge is, of course, the financial aspect, and that links to what Jean is talking about here with poorer countries. He mentions Mozambique, but I think South Africa is also has a huge poverty challenge. And of course, COVID has set us back quite a few steps in terms of the digital divide. And yeah, we were making some steps forward on getting the whole sort of economy into the digital world, and now it's taken a few steps back. So I don't know if you have anything extra to add over and above what you've already said. And then we'll take while the audience can think of 1 or 2 last questions then before we get to our closing. So do you want to add anything else on Jean's specific question? I think Tom covered it. Jean, are you happy?
Jean, maybe I can add something there.
Jean, would you like to add something, or Akash is going to answer first and then you can see if you're happy? Thanks. Okay, go Akash.
Okay, cool. You know, when we look at the port of Mozambique, it was really regarded as a disruptor in the supply chain for the South African economy, as an alternative as to where the trade route would go because of the lower costs and those kinds of things. Now, while we understand that Mozambique from COVID has been pushed back and those types of things, it really requires investment, like I mentioned earlier, like from the partnership model, so that we can really look at how does the supply chain get reinvigorated? How do we extract new processes from there so that it does become a competitive port again? So while there are a large number of verticals operating within Mozambique, one has to see what is its primary support and how do we help it? How do we inject revenue again into those countries through the use of technologies in order to not just bring about innovations for the sake of innovation, because that's the last thing these countries want to see. They don't want to see something new land on their shores that haven't been tested, but they really want to see if somebody's going to bring something to our shores, how are they going to help us? How are they going to invest in us? And also, how is it going to help make our people's life better at the end of the day? So especially when we look at a country like Mozambique, it should start at the port and the supply chain route that could add value to it. Not that I'm trying to take business away from our country, but that's just the competitive angle behind this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Akash. I know some of the aspects around Ariadne's question about sustainability education have already been touched upon. I know that also we are bringing in quite a few of these competencies, let's call them, around sustainability into computer science and information systems degree programs. And it's amazing to hear what the companies are doing as well. Would you recommend any additional things from the education kind of curricula side that hasn't been mentioned yet?
Brenda.
Oh, Akash, you muted yourself.
Oh, I'm muting myself. Okay, cool. I'm going to go first on this one, Koina. I think it's a way of thinking. And if I can use the Checkers 60/60 app again as an example, you know, we're doing a good work with how do we, in the academic institutions, how do we build platforms? How do we code efficiently? How do we look at putting apps together? But when we look at the other side of it, the softer side, we now have more vehicles on the road at any point in time. What happens when that transitions to electric vehicles? Then what is the cost implication behind that? Because when we look at how especially big organizations think today, it's not just bottom line revenue, it's a triple bottom line revenue. It's people, it's profit, and it's planet. So we're not just introducing technology, we're not just introducing strategies and digital for the sake of improving profitability, upskilling competent people, but it's also about how do we give back to the planet. So there needs to be that flip side of the coin as well. Sure, we've got a great platform with his breaking grounds in terms of delivery, but there are more vehicles on the road contributing to the CO2. How do we optimize that? How do we take a look at graph networks? How do we take a look at graph databases? And how do we, as we mentioned earlier as well, clean data, real data, to provide real-time analytics so that everybody makes better decisions. The person at home makes better decisions. The driver can make better decisions, because the siloed world in which technology was delivered is breaking down very quickly. And what customers now want from us is, okay, help us put the pieces together, help us recreate that transparency, and help us take the terabytes of data and give us something useful so that we don't have another COVID on our doorstep again, so that we can be more resilient, we can be more agile. So from the academic institutions, maybe my suggestion is injecting that level of thinking or growing it, rather nurturing it, so that there is a thought implication behind the technology solution, not just from a profitability perspective, but from a sustainability perspective as well. So it's not just about Kwena and I thinking about how we can put the right S4 solution in a landscape, but it's also about how does it impact the overall infrastructure for the organization and their people and their skills development as well. Because that's what organizations are looking at.
Thanks so much. Oh, sorry, Kwena, do you want to add something first?
Yeah, maybe just to quickly add on that, I echo exactly what Akash said. And, you know, I think that in addition to that, we need to think about how we can cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset within the students that are coming out of academia, and to equip them with those basic kind of foundational entrepreneurial skills, so that they can really take that ability to problem solve, to think through the problems, and then to think about how technology can address those problems and turn those into businesses, right, that can actually go out and scale and actually create even more kind of impact and employment. And I think one thing that COVID has shown us as well is the importance of kind of having a localized view, so understanding what's happening globally, but also understanding what is really happening in your local environment, and, you know, addressing that using the technology and the innovation and the sustainability mindset to address those issues. And then that's also an opportunity to then be able to take those solutions and to scale them to other parts of the world. So this is where we really want to create the new Ubers, you know, the new Airbnbs that have taken local challenges and then scaled that to the rest of the world. So that's the only thing I would really add, is to how do we instill that entrepreneurial mindset towards, you know, addressing problems and challenges.
Thank you so much. I think it's really amazing that companies are now focusing on this. And from the input from the students that I've spoken to, I believe this young generation is also, when they look for companies to go and work for when they finish their university studies, they're actually not just looking for a good salary anymore. They're actually looking for companies that are making a difference to the environment and to society's challenge. So that's really great. And yeah, Sean just wanted to add, which I also support, that there's the reverse perspective that we are all aware of, that COVID has also had a very positive impact, of course, on moving us into the digital world. And that kind of has forced us to change, even as we mentioned earlier, that people genuinely resist change. So I think that is a very big positive. Okay, so we are nearly out of time. I just want to know if there's any last burning questions from anybody. It's really been amazing getting input from what is happening in two different companies, both of which are really relevant to our students and to us even as academics. And yeah, so thank you for your time. Thank you very much, Kwena. Thank you, Akash, and everybody else who's attended. I do not see a hand up.
Yes, also from my side, thanks so much. Yes, I joined in on the questions and closing remarks, and that is something I actually wanted to say thanks to my co-host, and why we always over-prepare and have a plan B and just share everything across the board, and having that synchronous almost like flow into when one falls away, you just continue, and that was proven today. So thanks so much. That Murphy's Law will always follow us, but we need to be prepared. Again, thanks to everyone. Thanks, Kwena. Thanks, Akash. You guys have made it so interesting. I've certainly gained so much more knowledge today about our topic. And a special thanks to everyone who joined us. Without your participation, it would not have been a possibility or such a great success and engaging conversation. So if there's anything else from our panelists, otherwise stay safe, everyone, go well, and goodbye for now until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. I will share the recordings with everyone interested. Bye.
Anthea, would we also be able to just get those few slides from Akash? That would be great.
I can organize that.
Yeah, I'm hearing there's been quite a lot of load shedding and people falling out.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Same, yeah.
Quite a pity. Thanks so much again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye for now.